So in next 1 year, we'll be having roughly around 7,500 students going to come out in next 12 months. To give you some perspective, IITs took like 40 years to basically place out 5,000 students, and we are going to do that in 1 year or more than that in 1 year time. Currently, we have 7,000 students studying with us across different learning tracks. Again, from a scale perspective, I think IITs combining all together around 10,000 students study every year over there. And we are already almost as big as IITs right now in terms of the number of students who are studying with us.
Hello and welcome to the Indian Dream podcast. I'm your host Siddharth, and today we are interviewing the founder of one of the most impactful startups in this country. You're not going to be hearing about them in the news. They're not constantly fundraising, they are busy creating real impact on the ground. Before I tell you more about the founder and the company, let's talk about a few data points that will help you set context for this episode. India has 444 million people in the 0 to 18 years age bracket. That's about 40 crore people who are going to be entering the workforce over the next 15 to 20 years. For the economic growth of this country, we need to make sure that these people are given the right skill set so they can actually contribute to the economy. You would think that with 45,000 colleges and institutions, we are slowly but surely building up the capacity to educate and train these people. But that's far from the truth. The reality on the ground is very, very grim. For example, out of the 1.5 million engineers that graduate from India every single year, only 3% of them actually get a high paying job. The situation is even worse in the business and humanities courses. The education industry is a money making, recession proof business that's running on one simple fact. Every parent in this country wants their kid to hold a college degree. It doesn't matter if the degree is useful or not. The societal shame that comes from not having a college degree is a good enough reason for parents to push their kids to any college and spend 3 to 4 years to go through that college. However, in majority of the cases, the students that are coming out of these colleges don't actually have skills that are employable. The lack of employable talent is a huge problem that we need to solve if we want to achieve the Indian dream of becoming a large developed country. And to solve this problem, whatever we've done so far isn't working. Apart from the fact that we need to improve the infrastructure, we need to improve the quality of the faculty, we need to improve the quality of the courses, one core problem is the lack of incentive alignment. The colleges get their fees regardless of the fact if the student is employable or not, if they get a job or not. But imagine, what if colleges only got paid after a student graduated? Or what if they got paid based on how much money the student was making after graduating? I believe if we do this, the faculty problem, the infrastructure problem, the course problem will automatically get solved because the incentives are aligned. On the episode today, we're going to be talking about a startup that has pioneered the income share agreement or the outcome driven education model in India. Masai is a 3-year-old startup that has built a military style coding school that teaches students how to code in 6 months. They take students with no computer science or coding background, students right after 12, students after graduating from other degrees, and even students who have just graduated from computer science but actually don't know how to code. They take all these students, give them the right skill set in 6 months, and make them employable. Coding boot camps have been around for a while, but what makes Masai School different is they don't charge students upfront. They only charge students once they get a job that is more than 5 lakhs per annum. And that's what I mean by incentive alignment. There's no doubt that vocational training is key to making large sections of society employment ready and productive. Only on the back of skilled talent can you build large industries that contribute to the growth of the economy. We've seen this play out in China, where a large number of people were trained on manufacturing skills that actually led to China becoming the manufacturing hub for the world. For India, a similar opportunity lies in becoming the software hub of the world. And for that to happen, we need to train millions of students every single year and make sure they're employment ready. Over the next 50 minutes, you will see how Masai is creating real impact by making thousands of students employment ready in just 6 months. I talked to Prateek about the thesis behind Masai School, how they teach students, the execution challenges of getting 7,000 people a job every single year. By the way, that's more than all IITs combined. And we also talk about the partnership that they've just done with National Skill Development Corporation. Prateek is an IIT Kanpur graduate, a Teach for India alum. He's previously founded a real estate tech startup called GrabHouse that got acquired by Quicker. He's a second-time entrepreneur pursuing his first-time love of teaching. It's a fascinating conversation about the skill development space in India and what it takes to build a profitable edtech startup. Before we move on to the episode, I have one quick favor to ask. If you like the content that we create, please like, share, and subscribe. With that, let's move on to the episode. Prateek, welcome to the Indian Dream podcast. I am very excited to talk to you about your journey of building Masai School. An interesting story to start off with. We first bumped into each other, I think 7 or 8 years back at a casino in Goa. And I remembered because you were building Grab House then, and I was following the startup ecosystem, and I knew that Grab House eventually got acquired by Common Floor and then Quicker. So it's sort of serendipitous that I'm getting to talk to you now about your journey of building Masai School. Let's start. Let's get started. Let's directly jump onto the topic. You've entered the skill development sort of industry in India, right? This is an age old industry. Multiple attempts have happened. Different things currently are happening. What was your thesis? What led you to get into skill development as an industry?
First of all, thanks Siddharth for having me. And I recollect the time when we met during casino in Goa. So yeah, I think from a skill development perspective, the reason for me to enter into skill development is something which was very, very clear for me when I was in real estate. At that point of time, I decided that whatever next I'm going to do is going to be in education, and it is going to be for like next 30 years, 40 years, 50 years till the time I'm going to be alive. So that's something which I wanted to build, and that was a thought process which was very, very clear. Now, I think skill development is needed in our country because I think I'll share some stats with you to give you the alarming picture we are sitting on right now. We are currently having close to 1.5 million engineers coming out every year in our country, and most of them are unemployable. Okay, if you'll talk about the overall number of students coming out as graduate, that's around 15 crore people coming out as graduates. And I think that's where, like, forget about engineering, it's a problem which is available everywhere, and that none of the people are employable. We so proudly keep on saying that we have engineers, like if we'll throw a stone, it is going to hit to an engineer, and that is where we are at in our country. But the sad reality is that most of them end up becoming delivery executive and drivers, and that is something which is a crazy situation to be in, especially the kind of country that we live in, where we are the most, like the second most populated nation in the world. I think this is something which needs solving. At the other end, surprisingly, companies are struggling to basically find out good talent who is going to contribute. And now, if there is an army of people, and then there are companies those who are basically willing to hire them, but then there is no matchmaking which is happening, and neither these people have talent, skills, and companies have to invest a lot of time on training these people even if they hire them. So I think the challenges exist at both the ends, and that's what we thought is a problem worth solving for next 30 years, 40 years. I think this is something which is not going to be solved immediately, but that is basically the reason why I entered into skill development space, and very excited in last 3.5 years the kind of impact that we have been able to create so far.
I'm going to get into the impact that you've created and the problems that you've solved. One thought though, I think this whole problem of engineers coming out and not having any employable skills, in my mind there are two reasons. Correct me if I'm wrong. One is, I think somewhere in early 2000s the business of education became a business, which was open up a college in a building, put a couple of professors who might or might not know what's happening in the industry, and you attract all this talent from nearby smaller towns and you make them an engineer, and became, because engineer somehow got associated with a guaranteed a ticket to success, right? So that's one part of it. But even the good old institutions, right, people who traditionally produced good talent, I think their curriculum is now archaic. Like a lot of what we are studying at, or what is being taught at those educational institutions, haven't sort of moved ahead with time. Are these the two core problems? Is this something that I've misunderstood? But what's the core problem? Because we have tons of colleges and institutions out there.
Yeah. So you are absolutely bang on, Siddharth. The first one being, people tend to basically jokingly say that education in general is a recession proof business, specifically the college business. The reason for that is that people are going to keep on coming. Whether it is recession or not, they want to have degrees. They want to think or have that perception that they'll get a job in the end. And that's why it's a recession proof business. And that is something which people are taking advantage of. That's first. The second important thing is, yes, even in the best of the best institute, I was lucky enough to be a part of one of the best institute in our country. But over there also, I've seen that the curriculum changes every 10 years. And now you imagine that the tech industry, which is changing like crazy, like every 6 months there is a new thing which is coming out, and people are looking to basically adapt to it. And when things are changing at such a rapid speed, and this decade is going to belong to tech specifically, I'm going to speak more about tech because that's what we focuses on. Tech education is not changing at the college level, and it's an outdated curriculum which is going on. It's a weak pedagogy that they focus on. Actually, interestingly, most of the colleges don't understand what is pedagogy. Okay, they don't understand that the teaching is something which is very, very important, and what needs to be taught over there. They're not qualified to basically be a pedagogy instructor, and that's one of the most alarming state we are in. And I think these are the two fundamental reasons why we are at where we are right now currently, and why we are not able to skill our like talent which is coming to the colleges.
This problem is also big because, as you said, we are the number two most populated country in the world. In a year or two, apparently, we're going to be the most populated country in the world. And if you look at China, they had figured out manufacturing a few decades back and figured out, voluntary education in teaching people how to manufacture products, and they were able to absorb that kind of talent and skyrocket to where they are today. Unless we figure out a large industry which can absorb talent, it used to be IT services, but even if you put that in the context of the population that we have, it's still so minuscule, right? So you need to do it at a very large scale. And what you are betting on is basically it's going to be the era of tech, at least for the next 20, 30, 40 years. And if we can produce good talent that can sort of help these technology companies and upskill themselves, we are in for that path of making a developed nation and whatnot, right? Now, let's this is great thesis in terms of the problem that you're trying to solve, and I think the problem is obvious, right? But it's not very easy to solve for, right? Like, because if you think straight up, you're going to think, okay, let's build a new kind of college, a new kind of institution, which is going to take its own capex challenges in terms of years to build that brand name. How did you get to the concept of Masai, and why is it called Masai?
So I'll first start with why it is called Masai. Basically, when I was thinking about what next for me, at that point of time, I took a break, went to Tanzania, spent some time in Tanzania and Kenya. Was lucky enough to basically met Masai Mara tribe, which is the strongest tribe of Africa. So tried to figure out that why they are considered to be the strongest tribe of Africa. And then when I started digging deeper, I started understanding that they don't believe in formal education at all. What they believe is that they believe right from childhood you pick one skill and you become better and better and better at it. They have their own Masai Mara run schools where they teach different kind of skill sets for children, those who opt in. And this is basically the reason why they consider to be the strongest tribe, because if you talk about the best tourist guide, it's Masai Mara. If you talk about best hunters, that's Masai Mara. If you want to talk about best farmers, best cultivators, that's Masai Mara. So they have developed those skill set right from the childhood, and that's when the people have become really, really strong at it. And I thought that this is the problem that I'm trying to solve in India. And I think what could be the better way than dedicating the name of the institute that I'm thinking of starting to the philosophy that I truly believe in, because we believe in skills greater than degree in Masai, and that is something which was the original thesis as well. So I think what could be a better way than a tribute to the greatest philosophy on planet, and that's how Masai School name came into existence. Then when we started thinking about problem that how are we going to basically solve it, and the easiest solution that we can think of is that open up an institute and basically train people. But we thought that we need to understand first how big the problem is. First, we had not understood this problem is going to be so huge. So I remember the first batch that we started. So I called upon all the 17 students, those who were part of the first cohort of Masai, which was started on 10th of June 2019. And I spoke to their parents as well that I'm going to basically call them over here. What we are trying to do is changing the landscape of higher education system by not charging any fees upfront. We are not going to take a single penny from you. Um, they are going to learn over here. They are going to build those skill set, and once they are going to graduate and earn above 5 lakhs per annum, then only they are going to pay us fees. If they'll not get a job, they don't pay us anything. So so then the first question from the parents were that what is the catch, like who is going to teach anyone for free? And there is some catch over here which we are not able to figure it out. But they still took a leap of faith and they sent their kids. So the 17 students showed up on day one. One of them was computer science engineer. And then I remember talking to the father, and he was a locomotive driver. So I spoke to him that you send your kid and just send them along with few clothes and one laptop, because laptop is something where we are going to teach them programming. He said that Why there's a need for laptop? Because this guy did his computer science engineering and he never bought a laptop. And that was something which was a shocking thing for me, that someone who did BTech in computer science and don't have a laptop, have never coded in their life, and they have a degree, and he had like a better CGPA than when he graduated from college. So that was the first shocking moment for me. The second one was, there was this girl who was part of the first batch. She came on board on the first day, and then she showed me her resume. In her resume, she had mentioned AI ML projects which are there, like the best projects. She has worked on image recognition and all those things. And I thought that if you have done all of it, then what is the need of learning programming? We are going to teach you basic programming, boss. We are not going to teach you AI, ML, and other things. So she said that, no, no, I have not done anything. I don't know programming at all. I am a computer science diploma holder, but I have not done coding at all in my life. So then I asked her that how these projects are there in your resume. And she said that we bought the projects. And this is another very important thing that I never understood. And this is something it is, and this is a big industry. Surprising, they're big industries. Those are self BTech projects, which people blindly copy and get good grades. And this is like a different level of industry going on, which we have no idea of. Like we were still figuring it out that how big the challenge is going to be. And this is like, as you dig deeper and deeper, it is on a different level altogether. Like people don't know basic calculus, basic 10th 12th level stuff, and they are engineers, they are like even engineers from different backgrounds, so they are not disciplined at all. So another very important thing which is famous in Masai is 996. So people call us military style coding school. It came into existence because of our students, after seeing our student. So when they used to come to our classes from morning 9 o'clock, it starts. Some people are coming at 9:30, okay, 10 o'clock, okay. Then at 5 o'clock, they used to go back. That we have done the learning and now we are going back. And we used to say that when are you going to finish the assignment? And no one was actually caring about it because we have absorbed the content, that's it. And that's when we realized that was this is not how it is going to solve. We used to basically make them sit into the office from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. to make sure that they're going to finish their assignment, then only they're going home. And that actually started as an experiment, but then people started calling us as military style coding school, and that's how the name came into existence. That now everyone, like you ask any Masai student that they what changed Masai bring into them, and the first answer from almost everyone is going to be discipline. That it's been 3.5 years. We have not even started a single day at 9:01. It is always 9 o'clock and ends at 9 o'clock. So that's these are few things that we teach our students, and I think like that's how we started Masai.
Interesting. I'm going to get to the discipline point in a bit. But what you're doing in terms of cohort based classes, boot camps, whatever you call it, right? There have been, over the last years, there have been different names that have been given to the style of teaching, or what you are doing, right? But keeping all of that aside, boot camps have always existed, right? These programs where you can go learn coding boot camps have always existed. There have been quite a few before you as also. But one of the key changes that you did was outcome based education, which is, unless you get paid, I don't get paid, right? So it's free if you don't get paid. But you make the problem much harder for yourself by doing that, right? Which is, now you're not looking at just if this person will be able to absorb what I tell them and get a job. You're also trying to figure out where, because they've not paid, because there is nothing that they have on the line to lose, the chances of them sort of being disinterested or taking it lightly, taking it chill, are significantly higher. So you're now dealing with that problem. Is that where the discipline angle sort of came into picture, to figure out how do we make sure that the time that we're investing in them is actually they're returning the sort of, they're putting in their effort as well, while we sort of give them the knowledge that.
So I think I'll answer this into three parts. The first important thing is that I think this outcome-based education is actually a very, very important fundamental thing for us as an organization, because that will keep us like that usually keep us on our toes. I keep on saying it to our students, and even our students keep on saying this, that Masai team works harder than their students. The reason for that is very, very simple, because we want to make sure that everyone is going to get successful in the end. And for that, we need to work harder than our students. If they are doing 9 and 6, we need to do 9 to 7 days probably in a week, and that's how we work. That's how we operate. Another very important thing about this zero upfront fees is being a developing nation when most of our population is in either EWS or line. I think this gives a level playing field to every who has high motivation to learn and learn. And I think that's where we are able to attract people from all over the nation, and people those who have high level of motivation and to learn first and to earn also to get into that kind of a like top 2.5% of the population, because if you'll start earning above 5 lakhs per annum, you are going to be in top 2.5% of the working population in our country. And that is the aspirational piece which triggers those people. And like earlier boot camps, those who were existing actually created that sort of a roadblock for these people, those who don't have capital to invest, to learn. They want to learn, but they don't have money to basically learn. And this creates a level playing field and give access to them. And I think this is another very important piece that works in our favor. And the third important thing is not just discipline. I think one another thing that we have cracked beautifully is even if everyone is coming with the intent of learning and earning, who has the higher intent? And that is something which we are able to basically check in the first 5 weeks from a learnability perspective as well as from intent perspective. And I think it is similar to like if you invest in stock market, you tend to basically see that which are the stocks which are going to perform well. Okay, correct. So that's like I think, and there is a basic framework to basically identify those stocks. And in a similar way, there is a framework to identify who has intent, who is disciplined, and who has highest hunger to basically be successful in life. And we tend to basically like take a bet on those people by investing our money, our capital, our time, energy, and effort. That's essentially how the cohorts are created. And as you rightly said, boot camps used to exist. But if you see the fundamental difference between Masai School and boot camps is like I'll take an example of computer science engineering for 4 years. If you do all the calculation of classes, assignments, evaluations, and everything, a student is spending roughly around 1500 hours in 4 years to learn computer science engineering. In Masai School, if you'll see, only by doing programming in 7.5 months, you spend close to 1250 hours. And then if you'll top it up with soft skills and mathematics and logical reasoning, you are nearly closer to 1450 hours, which is almost equivalent to 4 years of computer science engineering that you did for your core subject. So, in nutshell, it is not a finishing school. It is not like we are going to basically polish you and just send you back into the placement. We are going to build the skills right from scratch, and you are going to be successful from a long term perspective when you enter into the tech industry. So that's the core differentiation between us and the boot camps.
You've already answered one of the questions that I had, because I was talking to somebody who spent 4 years in an engineering school and has worked as an engineer. And when I was talking about Masai and other sort of programs that are out there, and his first question was, how can you teach coding in 6 months? Like, that's just not possible, right? But now that you say it, the hours that go into it are pretty much the same over 4 years or over 6 months of military style coding. Then it completely makes sense. The other thing that I want to point out is I've actually interacted with a few Masai graduates, right? And I can attest to the fact that this is not a finishing school. I have had conversations with people who were 12th pass talking about computer science, in front end, back end with complete confidence. And I've had conversations with people 3 years of experience in manufacturing, now trying to move careers into coding, right? So I've had both the spectrums, and they have no background of computer science. So it's not like you're taking somebody who has the basic knowledge and just them something. So I can attest to that fact that that happens for sure at Masai. I want to understand a couple of other things now. 6 months of teaching somebody front end, back end, whatever that may be, is not guaranteeing in any way or form that you're going to be employable 7 years down the line, 5 years down the line, or even 2 years down the line. Because as you said, the technology industry is changing. The skills that you acquired right now might not be relevant a few years down the line, right? How do you solve for that problem? Is that something? Is this continuous education? How do you solve that problem?
So I think fundamentally, if you'll speak to our students, I think one thing which they'll say that they've become more disciplined and they've become really really disciplined after doing Masai school. But the second thing that they'll say, everyone will say that at Masai, I learned how to learn new things. Okay, so that's one of the core philosophy on the way we basically teach our students. So we don't start with theory at all. Okay, so we directly jump into the ocean and start swimming or learn swimming and start swimming, and that's how the core philosophy of our teaching is jump to the code and start coding and then figuring it out at how things are basically being created. And in that process, we are actually not just training them to get into the jobs. Like getting into the jobs is something which is very easy. We have students working in over 800 companies right now. If I'll tell you what are the interview questions they are going to ask, you are automatically going to get into the jobs. But that is not how we work or how we operate. We want to see you successful in next 5 years, 10 years of your life in the tech ecosystem itself. And for that, you need to basically build that framework in your mind that how, if any new technology is going to come in, how are you going to basically adapt to it? How are you going to learn to it? And that's how we teach. Like we are a 0 to 1 school. We take people from BA, BCom, BSc, 12th pass, every kind of background. And when we take those students, no, like most of them don't know programming at all. So right from the starting, they build that habit of adapting to new things, adapting to new learning. And I think that basically gives them that kind of a confidence. And I have seen most of our students entered into the technology that they have learned in Masai, but now slowly moved away from that toward different technologies which company is asking for, and very smoothly, very swiftly, without any hurdle or any challenges. So I think this is one of the most important piece. If you'll teach them in this way, and if they'll build that framework in their mind, I think they are not going to basically struggle at all in life.
Interesting. Pradeep, you started this back in 2019, pre-COVID era, right? As you said, called people, 17 people in a physical sort of, setup where you were teaching, moved on to an online first model, which I believe it is today, right? What were some of the execution challenges that happened along the way? And if you were to look back at the first cohort to what it is now, what kind of iterations have happened? What kind of changes have happened that you learned during the execution? Apart from the fact that we discussed, the intent to learn, focusing on intent to learn, focusing on discipline. But were there other education challenges of doing this at scale versus at 17 people when you started?
Many challenges, and I think we have evolved a lot. I'll give you a few of them from an example perspective that how we have solved it. First and foremost, we always knew that we are going to teach programming over laptop. So even if we are calling students in physical setup, the classes always used to happen online. So when we shifted completely remote, nothing has changed for the students because the classes always used to happen online. We used to code live in front of them. So I think that's one very important thing which has remained as it is. That's where we had faced the least amount of challenges. But I think like cohort based education has their own challenges. And I always believe like when people say that cohort based education is the next big thing in education, I disagree over there because cohort based education plus personalized learning is something which is going to be the future of education. And how we do that in Masai. So when there were 17 students, you know that everyone has a different learning curve. But when that number increased from 17 to let's say 50, you know that there are different pockets of students. Some of them are able to pick up things really fast. Some of them are not able to pick up things at a fast speed, but they have intent, they have all the right ingredients to basically be a software engineer. So how we solved that? We came up with a framework called mastery based progression, which I feel is the single biggest thing lacking in our education system. I think, and this is very well adopted in European school. How mastery based progression works is basically there are series of evaluation which happens. Okay. And you need to demonstrate your mastery for the concept that you have learned during those evaluation. If you're not able to demonstrate your mastery, you don't move forward. You basically go back and strengthen the topics that you are not able to understand so that whenever you are moving forward, you are already aware and like have mastery of all the previous topics that you have covered. So I think that's one of the biggest thing, one of the most challenging tasks also for us to do that at scale. But we do mastery based progression. It's a very, very expensive technique, but it is very, very important if you really want to focus on outcome. So that's one very important thing.
Why do
That
you say it's expensive technique?
it's expensive because, like, for example, to give you an example from a school perspective, like, let's say if I'm good at math, okay, I might be studying in seventh grade students in math, but I'm not good at, let's say, social sciences. So I'm studying at fifth grade students at social sciences. If you see a student is actually studying in different level as per their own mastery, it is very, very operationally cumbersome. At the same point of time, it needs a very different kind of an attention altogether from an instructor perspective and from the support system perspective. And that's why you're talking about one student and now just multiply it to 2000 students where everyone is on it is at different level and the kind of personalized attention that they need. That's when it becomes very, very expensive. So I think, but this is very, very important if you want to if you want to make an outcome based education. That's the reason we adopted it, and we I think this is one of the best thing in Masai, if you'll ask from students. Second, I think another very important thing that we figured out when we grew from 50 students to, let's say, 200 students. Now, 200 students sitting in a class, you don't know what they are doing in class. Okay, whether people have just opened their laptop and attending the class, or whether they are actually coding, because it's a live coding class. And that's when we wanted to see how they are coding, and that's when we came up with a framework called IWY. So in Masai, the classes are not like a regular class. It's I do, we do, and you do. I do means instructor code. We do means if you are a student, instructor and you code together. And you do means you code in front of instructor. And that basically is a reinforcement technique, that whatever you are learning, you are absorbing it and then you are implementing it. And that is going to make the concept really, really like stays with you for a long period of time, because you have learned it, you have implemented it then and there itself, first in a guided way and second on your own. So that's another very important thing that happens. Like that is again, like from a scale perspective, that is one thing which we have solved. Another very important thing that we have solved is also quite an amazing thing, because when you started becoming popular, when you have like thousands of students applying to you every cohort, every week, there are many people, those who tend to basically bypass the system in some way or the other and tend to basically indulge in plagiarism. And I think like plagiarism is a single fundamental piece which is there right from our school education, that stays in most of the people. And they just they think that they enter into Masai, now they are going to get 5 LPA job. So they just need to basically do cheating or plagiarism to move forward. Now that compromise the outcome-based education, because if you are not learning the concepts, and if you are basically involved in cheating or plagiarism, you're faking that whatever report you are producing, and that is something which is going to become really, really challenging for us when we are going to place you. So for that we have built, so the best plagiarism detector tool which exists across the globe, which is being used by all the universities, is MOS. It is being developed in Stanford, and we built our platform on the top of MOS to identify, to catch hold of people, those who are indulging in plagiarism while they are learning, while they are participating in evaluation. And once once we started solving that, and I think that is something we had a big breakthrough, because people started understanding that we have a mechanism to catch them. And when you have that mechanism, that's when the cheating and everything stops. And this is something which needs to be implemented at scale. Otherwise, in the end, you have all the people coming out. They have a very good report card, but again, the same problem of engineering college, where everyone has a good credible score, but they don't know anything. So that's something which is going to come up. And I think these are like, I think, four important things that we have solved. Apart from that, we have solved many things, but
Yeah, just on the plagiarism point, it also throws your model off, right? Because you think that, hey, they've done everything that we told them to and they've produced great results. Why are they
correct.
not employable now, right? So it also shakes your conviction if you don't solve it at the right time, right? And it might not be that big a problem at 50, 100 students, but as you said, at 1,000, 2,000, if 200 of them are doing this, even 10% of them are doing this, you're suddenly like, wait, 200 people, we couldn't place them even though they had great reports. It can definitely throw the model off. I think one of the things that stands out for me is how there's just the whole thinking, because I think it's part of, what you want to build and as an institution, but part of just the business model, which is outcome based, right? Because when you have outcome based, you suddenly stop thinking from a perspective of what's efficient for me as an institute or as a college or school to do, versus what's efficient for the student to learn, right? Like, because our incentives are now aligned. All the schools, all the colleges behave in the fact that, as you said, fifth and seventh different subjects, very hard to do, so let's all graduate these people together, they all move to the next class together because it's efficient to do. It's the right, it's the right business sort of problem to solve for, which is badge those people so that you have less operational challenges. But when you flip that game to incentives being aligned on outcome based, you have no option but to figure out, like, how do I really solve this problem? I think I've had this discussion on this specifically, and I want to go deeper on that, right? This is concept that came from the US, probably stricter rules, that laws that you can use to implement ISAs there, versus a country like India. Implementing ISAs itself, it's a financial sort of innovation that has happened. What kind of experience you've had implementing ISAs? Because are there legal recourse? And even if there's legal recourse in India, I mean, it can take ages for you to like even get your money back. What's your experience been with ISAs?
So yes, ISA fundamentally is not like very well regulated either in US and in India, though it's a different problem altogether. But the way we have actually solved this problem is, and again, we were lucky in this journey to have NBFCs, those who have actually financed the entire ISA piece. So the way it works is basically we work with NBFCs. Uh, we don't charge any fees from the students, and when the student graduate, get placed, gets an offer letter of 5 LPA or above, then NBFC basically enter into the picture, and the entire, so ISA means that you are going to share a part of your salary every month to the institute. So in our case, the fees is 3 lakh rupees, and when the fees is 3 lakh rupees, you need to pay it from your monthly salary over a period of 36 months or lesser. So let's say if you're earning a lakh a month, okay, so 15% of your salary comes out to be around 15,000 per month, and you'll be able to finish paying 3 lakh rupees in like probably 12 to 18 months time as compared to 36 months. So the cap on the fees is 3 lakh rupees, but it is divided equally among every month in the form of a EMI, okay, which is given to the NBFC. So NBFC is basically responsible for collecting the money from your salary every month. It is in the form of EMI. But one important piece is, and that's why I think we are the truest ISA or pay after placement, as we call it, player in our country. Because in our case, let's say if because of any reason you lost your job, okay, so let's say you started your salary at 5 LPA, you were working over there for 6 months, and you suddenly lost your job. Currently, the market scenario is like that. So what happens is that you don't need to keep on paying your EMI. So your EMI stops, and Masai basically pay EMI on your behalf so that your credit score won't go for a toss. So it's, in a nutshell, you are only paying when you're earning, and your fees is capped at 3 lakh rupees. So once 3 lakh rupees is finished, then your fees is over, then your ISA is over, but or pay after placement agreement is over. But Masai School is not just responsible for placing you, but also responsible during the entire journey when, if because of any reason you had any kind of problem, to basically help you and support you over there. And that's in nutshell. So that's how we implemented it, and NBFC played a big role. Now another very important thing is that NBFC is a regulated body in our country. So when they are taking care of pay after placement agreement, that's when it is in the regulation domain rather than the common problems which ISA in US or other places are facing right now.
Yeah. This is the right kind of buy now, pay later that we should be talking about rather than, buying an iPhone and paying for it later. That's what the entire industry talks about. Okay, now talking about, the whole the buy now, pay later will get us to the venture capital ecosystem. You previously built a startup. You know what it takes to raise money, exit. You've seen that journey once. When you were starting this model out, at the face of it, doesn't look like a typical venture capital backed startup, right? Because your marginal costs are going to increase in some way or form as you try to teach more people. You need more instructors, more teaching assistants, all of that. What was the thought process of raising capital? What do you think, like, how does this pan out in your mind now that you've done this once, you're doing it the second time? Tell us more about that.
So, one very important thing about outcome based education is that in the starting, you need capital, because for the starting 7.5 months, when you're teaching someone, you are investing money on them. And then once they get placed, then you start getting your money back. So, in the starting few batches, yes, you need some capital. So that's why we were again very lucky to raise capital from India Quotient, who were investors in my previous startup as well, and then raise capital from Uniters and Omedia during the course. But one thing which we understood, and we were very, very clear right from the starting, is that this is not going to be a typical venture capital startup where we'll be burning money. We need to be cash flow positive. We need to basically be a profitable company. And I think we're cash flow positive in a couple of months, and we are almost on the verge of being cash flow positive. So it's a revenue making company. It's not, we were very clear that we are not going to make an organization which is going to just burn money and not making revenues out of it. Anyone who asks us that, um, you guys are very, very frugal. The people keep on saying that you belong to Rajasthan, that's why you're behaving like Bania. But I think like that's a good thing. I take it as compliment that that's a very, very good and fundamental way of building a business appropriately. And I think that is something which we focus on as well over here. But we know that this entire model will go for a toss if we are not on our toes, if we are not going to basically make our students very, very skilled. Because let's say if 1,000 people comes out and if they are not skilled, then this entire model will go for a toss. So You need to be in that alert mode all the time. You need to work hard, but I think, and then you can make a very successful, profitable business out of it.
The biggest problem that, with burning money, the reason why people are burning money, apart from all the, branding expenses that go on, and sponsoring world cups and whatnot, is the CAC, right? Which is, how do you acquire more students? How do you get the name out? Isn't that an issue? Like, isn't that something that you have to spend money on?
No, so literally we have zero CAC business, and the reason for that is very simple. So that, like, if you see from a fundamental perspective, I think cash on delivery was the biggest disruption in our time, which has happened in e-commerce space, because before that people were not comfortable paying online, and then cash on delivery came into existence, and everyone started basically ordering things, experiencing it, and then paying for it. I think in a way, pay after placement model is also like that. So, like, let's say if 10 students came to know about you, and every student has more unemployed friends than employed friends. That is something which is a reality of our country. So when 10 students comes to you, and when they'll see the quality of teaching, when they see the effort that you're putting in, when they see what they are learning, the confidence that they are getting, they tend to brag to the unemployed friends, obviously, because they are going to say that I am learning, I'm going to get a job, and now, and then those people, those who are unemployed, they are going to basically join. So in a way, it creates that viral loop, because you are first getting a quality education, then you're getting a job, and then you have that brag right to speak to your unemployed friends, and that is where they are going to come back. So I think because of that, from every person there are at least two or three new referrals which keeps on coming to Masai School, and because of that you don't need to basically spend any capital on marketing and acquiring them. So I think, and that is something which is supposed to happen idealistically. That is, if we would be spending money on acquiring customer, then we are doing something very, very wrong in this model, because you should not be spending money on acquiring customers for this model. Where there is CAC, I think there is a big barrier, because you need to pay a high fees, and you need to find out those people who can pay that kind of a fees. And over there, CAC is justified, but in our model, it is not justified at all.
Yeah. If you mix high CAC and capital that you've raised from venture capitals, you're now on a treadmill where your CAC is going to keep increasing because you want more and more people. And that's a treadmill that's very hard to get off of. You just get lucky in some periods where people who started in 16, 17 probably exited in 19, 20 when it was highly liquid. You can't really time it. You can't predict that far ahead, right? I genuinely believe, and the Indian Dream has now had 150 episodes, and from day one, when it was not popular, because we started in 2020, when it was not popular, we were focusing on profitable business. We were focusing on cash flow positive businesses, right? Which meant all these brand names that are in media day in day out, we didn't even approach them to get them on the podcast, because we just genuinely didn't believe in that. And for the first 2 years, that sounded like you're doing an entrepreneurship show, but you're not calling all these people. But now that, just like yours, that bet has paid off, because now everybody wants to talk about profitable businesses. Everybody wants to talk about dhanda, right? Like, and
Correct.
frugality is core to how you build a dhanda. Like, if you don't have that, you're not going to be able to build, right?
Correct, correct. And I think that's like, these are few things which are already there around us, but we tend to basically ignore it in the image of building a startup and thinking about that we are doing something, changing the world. And in that scenario, we tend to basically forget the fundamentals.
And I'm sure, I mean, your previous experience, right? Because you were in one of those periods again, which was boom and bust, 2013, 14, 15, 16. You'd seen one cycle of raising capital and what it takes to acquire customers and build a profitable business. So I'm sure that played a huge part in how you wanted to build this. One last question on the execution piece before we talk about the impact that you've already created and the partnership with the National Skill Development Corporation. For you to scale this model, teachers are the most integral piece in this, right? Because when we talk about institutions, when we talk about universities, one of the common problems is we don't have good teachers. We don't have good teachers because we don't pay them well, so there's no incentive to become a teacher. And when you have not so good teachers, you have not so good students who are being taught by them. So it's a vicious circle at that point in time. How have you solved that problem?
So that's like, um, this is completely bang on, because when this new education policy came into existence, at that point of time I tweeted about it, that the fundamental, like, this policy looks really, really great on paper, but it is going to basically be into execution. It is going to implement it only when we are going to have like the best teachers who are implementing it. Teachers and lawyers plus judges are the two important people in our country who needs to be paid well, and those jobs need to be highly lucrative. Unless we'll not solve that piece, it is not going to basically work out really well, and we'll not be able to implement anything. So what we did in Masai is, we knew right from the starting that we are not going to bring people from academic background as teachers. We If we are teaching things which are needed in the industry, you need to have only industry experts. So as a result, all our instructors are from the industry. They were SD1, SD2, SD3 tech leads, VP engineering in their previous organization, and they have joined because they have a passion towards mentoring and educating people. And at the same point of time, they wanted to do something meaningful for the society. So, but they are not going to come out leaving their jobs which are into core domain at a less salary. They need to get paid like probably 2x of what they were earning earlier, because you need to make it lucrative. You need to make this profession very lucrative for people, those who want to contribute towards changing the narrative of this entire problem statement that we are dealing with. And then you need those passionate people, and they are not going to come out as cheap. They need to be paid very well. So I think this is one problem which quota or 11, 12, the JE market has solved beautifully. Like, we are not adapting from it, because in Kota, I remember during the time when I was there, most of the best star instructors used to earn like in crores, and that is needed. You need to basically share the wealth with the people, those who are actually building your institute. And if you're not going to do that, it is not going to basically change anything, or it is not going to survive. So I think that's the same thing which we implemented over here. And I think that's why we are able to basically attract the really good people. Those who are first passionate, they need to be passionate about the problem that we are trying to solve, and then they need to be paid really well, so that they enjoy. You need to basically, like, if they are enjoying doing or solving the problem, you need to take care of all the other things for them, so that they'll focus on the core problem that they are trying to solve. So I think this is something which we have. This is how we have solved it. But yeah, I think the this is being solved other places as well, and I think we need to just implement those things.
Yeah. And I'm assuming you also have to go through then the train the trainer program, which is, these people might have a knack for teaching, but also sort of giving them the right skill sets to teach these many people at scale and be able to do this effectively, right? That's part of making this business model work.
Yes. So we have definitely a train the trainer program in Masai, where we take some of the people, those who are from the industry, those who want to teach but they don't know how to teach, those who want to contribute but they don't know how to contribute. So for them, there is a program that we have, which is like a 2 months program, where you will learn how to basically teach what is pedagogy and other things, and then through that, people are basically onboarded as instructors in Masai.
Interesting. I'm going to switch gears a little bit to focus more on the impact that you've already created in the last 3 years, right? One of the things that stood out for me is the partnership with with NSDC, right? With National Skill Development Corporation. How did that come about? What does that partnership entail, both from an NSDC perspective, your perspective? Tell us a little more about that.
So we started the conversation with NSDC team like roughly in 2021 starting. They came to know about Masai School through one of the student. One of the authority member came to know about Masai through one of the student, and that's a very interesting story. And then after that, they reached out to us that the work that you are trying to do, NSDC is created to basically do that kind of a work. And skilling people is what we want to do, and how can we contribute, or how can we part of the entire journey of Masai. And that's how the conversation started, and we end up basically we became partner of NSDC, and then now we are sitting with NSDC to basically solve or create a framework for all the other skilling institute around IT sector in our country. Like, what is needed for any skilling institute, from curriculum perspective, from pedagogy perspective, to train someone who is going to be job ready from the industry perspective. So it's a slightly longer term partnership. And then I'm going to be announcing one big news with NSDC in next few weeks. They are doubling down on the partnership that we have with them by being a part of Masai in one way or the other. So, like, I just don't want to reveal more details right
Fair enough.
now, but
Yeah.
yes. So, but I think, like, yeah. So I think both of us, NSDC as well as Masai, the core goal or the goal that we have is same. One thing which stood out for them was Masai is meant for where 75% of our students come from tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities and villages of our country. 80% of our students are from economic weaker section of the society. And I think changing them, and they also knew one thing, that the kind of impact that we are creating, we are not just changing the life of a person, we are changing the entire family life altogether by bringing this change. And I think that is something which excited them a lot. Specifically, some of our students, those who came from villages and now earning like 12 LPA, 15 LPA in their jobs, whose like family income used to be less than 5,000 rupees a month and now earning that kind of money. Many of them have bought TV for the first time. And then I think like when they see that the kind of impact that we are bringing in, and also at the same point of time when we announced, I think when our 3 year of Masai was completed, at that point of time we had actually bring close to 200 families out of poverty line because of the placement that we did with our students, those who belong to below poverty line. And I think all these things actually made them very, very excited about this partnership. And that's how, and this is the reason why Government of India have started NLTC. And I think fundamentally this is how the problem is going to be solved at a grassroots level.
Yeah. If I can add, I think you're not changing just an individual or a family, because in a lot of these villages and societies, the community is so tight knit that once you see somebody sort of breaking out, it inspires a lot of other people saying that, hey, there is a way, there is a path to do that, because a lot of these people are don't have the exposure to eventually pursue these paths, right? So even if you can help one person break out, I think the impact that it has on the others is significant. So I don't think it's limited to family. So kudos on that. This whole problem impact can be looked at from two different perspectives, right? One is the individual level, which you've already spoken about. Tell us a little more about the impact to companies, right? Because as you said, the companies are having a tough time finding good talent, and now your talent is placed at 800 companies. How has that relationship with corporates evolved in, in this entire journey, and how have you scaled that partnership, those partnerships?
So I think like there are different kind of companies which exist. So I broadly divide the companies in our country in three broad categories. One is service-based companies, second one is global capability centers, and third one is startups. I think for startups, those who want to basically quickly hire people, for them, I think the accessibility of a talent at any given point of time, the contribution of the talent, like every student being job ready right from day one, they don't need to invest any time, energy, and effort on training them, is something which works out really well. And for them, I think this is what they want. Same is the case with service based companies and global capability centers as well. So earlier they used to hire entry level talent from colleges. Okay, now imagine the problem is that you think about hiring people from colleges, you go to a college in December, you hire them, they join you next May or June. And then after that, they go through 6 months of training program and they effectively become billable next to next year in January or February. So for them, it's like a long lead time for anyone for the bet that they're taking right now. They are hiring someone right now, but they are going to be contributing or becoming billable after 1.5 years. But versus in Masai case, they come to us, they hire us, and the next day itself, the person is going to basically start contributing. And that is like that reduces the lead time in a very, very different way for them. That's why they're very, very excited. And obviously, I think like one common feedback that we have received from some of the companies is first and foremost, Masai School students are again like the way we condition them. They are highly disciplined, very, very humble, down to earth because of their background. Second important thing is that like from a stats perspective, we will see 94% of our students are still in their first job. Like although our students have, and this is like the industry which has the highest amount of attrition. Imagine someone is sticking to a job. 94% of our students are still in the same job that they have started with. They have grown over there, as in like they have promoted from one level to another, but they are still sticking to the same companies. This is another very, very interesting thing for most of the companies, those who hire from us. And then yes, I think like we give readily available talent, and we have like placement for all 12 months. Every month there is a batch which graduates. So they take the talent which is coming out, then they basically they're job ready, and also they don't have to pay any single penny to basically hire people from Masai because we don't charge any fees from the hiring partner. So I think in a way it is a very lucrative opportunity for them to basically be partner of Masai. And that's why I think till 3 months back, we had literally one or two people in the BD team. We always were in a scenario where we had always more number of companies who want to hire Masai School students than our students. So we always used to have like let's say 100 companies are there, but there are only 50 students available right now, which are the companies that we are going to basically satisfy this in this month. So this was the case like until 3-4 months back because it's a clear win-win scenario for everyone, and that's why it never was very difficult to basically bring in companies to hire Masai School students.
Yeah, and then just to add, I think the it's not just getting talent that's ready on day one, it's also the cost that you would have incurred on training them, right? You've taken that training program cost onto yourself and just completely flipped that business model, right? Because you train so many people, half of them don't stick around, half of them go to a competitor at a 20% hike. All of that is very common in how this industry works. So yeah, it flips the model.
Yeah, yeah.
What's the scale today? How many on a monthly basis, on a cohort basis, how many people, or a yearly basis? I think that might be a good number too. What are you projecting? How many students will come out of Masai in the next year?
So in next 1 year, we'll be having roughly around 7,500 students going to come out in next 12 months. To give you some perspective, IITs took like 40 years to basically place out 5,000 students, and we are going to do that in 1 year or more than that in 1 year time. Currently, we have 7,000 students studying with us across different learning track. Again, from a scale perspective, I think IITs combining all together, around 10,000 students study every year over there. The intake rate is 10,000, and we are already almost as big as IITs right now in terms of the number of students who are studying with us.
Yeah, the unfortunate reality though is there need to be 10 or 20 Masais to actually satisfy the problem that the Indian population poses, right? It's impossible for one institution to really figure this out. It needs to be a collaborative effort to get where we want in terms of skilling and getting these people industry ready. Kudos, man. This has been a fantastic conversation. This has been a fantastic journey. I've been following the Masai journey from the outside for a while now. I'm so glad I got a chance to speak to you and speak about how NSDC and you are coming together. I think policymakers coming together with private institutions is how the country is going to progress. So I'm glad to see that happen, that partnership evolve, and I'm glad to see 7,500 people coming out, man. That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, Siddharth, for having me. And it was lovely discussing it with you. And I think like it's like people like you, those who are cheering from the sidelines for us. I think that's why we are actually sticking to the path and keep on solving the problem that we have taken in our hands.